All right, this is One Last Midnight. Welcome back to another episode of Farthest Frontier. Today we're going to be talking all about food and farms and all that good stuff. If you've watched my previous guides, this is just a continuation on those previous guides. And how to maintain food is a seriously important thing if you want to keep your village going. Let's go ahead and talk about the easy things first, the things that you should have been doing from day one of your village. And that's putting down your hunting cabins, your forester shacks, and your fishing huts. Look, you need to maintain those. As your population grows, you're going to need to continue to add additional hunting cabins, foragers, and fishing huts. You can also look at the food icon, and that'll tell you how much food that you have stored, how much is going to spoil, and what types of food that you have, so that you can focus your attention on what you need. Oh, I need more fish, I need more meat, I need more veggies, I need more whatever. This town is a tier 2 town. It picks up right where we left off from the previous helpful guide, getting your town into tier 2. As I have expanded this town out, I have grown to accommodate with the food. So I've added additional fishing areas, I've added additional forager areas, and have also added an arborist to be able to do fruit trees so that I can get fruit in. With all of these, the hunter, the forager, and even the fishing shack, from time to time, you're going to need to move the radius in which they work in order to produce fish, meat, or forage. Forage is actually okay as long as you set it up in an area that has a good abundance of things. They will continue to gather throughout the years. So just make sure that when you place down a forager, you're placing it down in an area that you can get the highest possible yield, which is 3 arrows, that you possibly can. The other thing that I did was I was able to get a barn up and running. And a barn is going to, once you purchase cows, produce more cows. And then you can set a herd size to a specific number that will then turn around and kill any additional. So this is set to 12. So any cows above 12 will automatically be slaughtered. And you can see that you get X amount of food for slaughtering a cow. I believe it's 500 per cow. If you're getting an enormous amount of meat in, you need to make sure that your production of your smokehouse stays up to par. All of these are kind of like cascading events, right? You produce more meat, your smokehouses, you're going to need more smokehouses. Your smokehouses are going to use more firewood. You're going to need more firewood choppers. You're going to need more people cutting trees, so on and so forth. As you grow, keep this in mind, because if one resource falls away, like let's say I run out of firewood, then I'm not smoking this meat, and this meat will actually spoil and it'll be a waste. All right, so that's the basic stuff. So let's talk about farms. Farms are hugely important to produce goods on a yearly basis. Unfortunately, until you get into preserving and coopering, which is a tier 3 town, you're not going to be able to store those goods very well. You can store them in a root cellar. That's fine. The root cellar does slow down the decay of the food, but not as good as the preservists to keep those vegetables around longer. The farm design that I have chosen is 10 by 10 farms, and I make 4 of them immediately. Go back to the previous helpful guides. You can see me set them up. I don't work them immediately. I just set the space in which my farms are going to be located and allocate that space. But typically when you're starting in the beginning, you don't have enough people to run your farm. So put down these farms, pause the construction on 3 of them, let them construct one 10 by 10. And in the 10 by 10, and you can take a screenshot of this, put in this rotation. This is your first crop field. Now this rotation of peas, clover, and workmen will get the fertility up very high. It will reduce the weed level down to almost 0, and it'll get rid of the rocks in the ground. After you run this rotation for many years, you will get the increased fertility, the low weeds, and the rockiness, but it's going to take time. The upside of this is peas get produced. You get a lot of peas that are produced. You can see in my food area, beans, peas are all kind of the same thing. I have 1,500 of these. Most of these will spoil because I don't have a way to preserve them, but that's okay because the following year I'll make even more. For your first year, or for the time in which you only have 5 farmers, run just 1 farm. As soon as you have 5 additional people, start up another farm with the same rotation but reversed. Have the worker first, the clover, and then the peas at the end. This will give you an abundance amount of food. You won't have to worry about food. The bonus is in having two fields, one putting the peas at the end. Going into winter and into spring, you will have food to survive the winter. And in this one, harvesting at the end of spring, then you'll have food to survive all the way up until you get to the winter time. So let me sum this up for you. For simplicity's sakes, let me just show you what the rotation should be. New field should be this pea clover worker. After you get your field up to high fertility, low weeds, low rockiness, your choices vary. If you're trying to produce flax for clothing, which is a great trade item, you want to run this type of field. If you need grains for your barns, or if you're turning around and milling your grain into flour and then making bread out of it, you want to run this type of field rotation. Here is also a variation on the grain rotation that you can use. To produce a lot of root vegetables for your village, use this rotation. And this is the rotation you should use for if you want to produce a lot of leeks for, like, let's say, winter food. Again, keep in mind, don't change this setup or this setup until your fields are absolutely maxed out. Once they're maxed on fertility, low weeds, low rockiness, then you can convert over to any of the other formats. And yes, it's going to take a lot of farmers, but it's going to produce a lot of food. Here's another save that I have. It has 284 people in it. You can see I'm still doing the 10 by 10. I happen to have 8. 3 additional are not being worked. This is a brand new one that I just put down. So I was able to get up to 250 people before I felt I started to need to augment or add additional farm fields from the first initial 4 that I put down. This is a very, very powerful setup. Not only can you produce an enormous amount of food on it, but if you ever needed to get a high fertility, for whatever reason your compost is not cutting it, the barn grazing area is set to 10 by 10. So you can easily turn one field for the entire year into clover and just have your cows feed on it, and they will increase the fertility quickly. That is the main reason of setting it up to be a 10 by 10, because it matches exactly the grazing area of the barn. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Would love to have you in the community. If you want to follow me on any of my social media, you can find the links in the description below. And make sure to hit that notification bell. That way you know when I go live and when I post new videos. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.